Christmas Eve. Snow falling gently outside. I stood on my parents' front porch holding a bottle of wine I had no intention of drinking with them. Through the frosted window, I could see the whole family gathered around the fireplace, laughing, talking, celebrating. My brother Derek sat in the center of it all, his arm around the woman who was supposed to be my wife. 8 months ago, I caught them in bed together. Tonight, my family had orchestrated what they called a reconciliation, what I called an ambush. Before I share what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. Now let me take you back to where it all started, to the moment my perfect life shattered into a million pieces. 3 years before that cold December night, I met Luann at a charity fundraiser for underprivileged children. She was volunteering at the registration table, wearing a simple blue dress that matched her eyes. When she smiled at me, I forgot my own name for a second. We talked for hours that evening, discovering we both loved hiking old movies and terrible puns that made other people groan. Luann taught 2nd grade at a public school downtown. She had this way of talking about her students that made you believe in the goodness of the world. Every kid had potential in her eyes. Every struggling reader was just one breakthrough away from loving books. Her optimism was contagious, and I found myself falling hard and fast. I worked as a software engineer at a tech company, spending my days writing code and my evenings counting the hours until I could see her again. After 6 months of dating, she moved into my apartment. After 2 years, I proposed on a hiking trail overlooking the valley where we had our first real adventure together. She cried and said yes before I even finished asking the question. We set the wedding date for spring. I put a deposit on a house in a quiet neighborhood, with good schools already imagining the children we would raise there. Luann spent weekends picking out paint colors and curtain fabrics, filling Pinterest boards with ideas for each room. Everything felt possible. Everything felt right. But there was always Derek. My younger brother had been the golden child since birth. When we were kids, he broke the neighbor's window playing baseball. I got blamed for not watching him closely enough. When he flunked out of college after 2 semesters of partying, my parents called it a gap year to find himself. When he cycled through jobs every few months, they praised his adventurous spirit. I lost count of how many times my parents called asking me to help Derek out, lend him money for rent, co-sign his car loan, talk to my boss about getting him an interview. I always said yes, because that is what family does. Right, Luann would rub my shoulders after those calls and tell me I was a good brother. She said family was the most important thing. I believed her. What I did not notice was how often Derek started coming around. How he always seemed to know my work schedule. How Luann's phone buzzed with texts she would smile at, but never show me. The day everything changed was a Thursday in April. My team had finished a major project 2 weeks ahead of deadline, and my manager told everyone to take the rest of the day off. I decided to surprise Luann, stopped at her favorite florist for yellow roses, picked up a bottle of the wine she loved from that little vineyard we visited on our anniversary trip. When I pulled into our apartment complex, I noticed a familiar car in the visitor parking, a faded blue sedan with a dent in the rear bumper. The car I had given Derek money to buy 3 years ago. My heart did not suspect anything yet. I figured he was visiting Luann while I was at work, maybe helping her with something around the apartment. I even felt a small warmth thinking about how my brother and my fiancée got along so well. I juggled the flowers and wine as I unlocked the front door. The living room was empty. The television was off. But there were sounds coming from down the hallway, from our bedroom. Sounds that did not make sense at first. My brain refused to process what my ears were hearing. I walked down that hallway like a man in a dream. Each step felt like moving through water. The bedroom door was slightly open. I pushed it with my fingertips and watched it swing inward. Luann and Derek. In our bed. The bed where I held her after nightmares. The bed where we planned our future. The bed where I thought I was building a life. The flowers hit the floor first. Then the wine bottle shattering against the hardwood red spreading like blood across the boards. The sound made them freeze. Turn. See me standing there. Derek scrambled for his clothes, his face cycling through shock, guilt, and something that looked almost like relief. Luann grabbed the sheets, pulling them up as if modesty mattered anymore. She was crying before she even started talking. "It just happened," Derek said. "I swear, Marcus, it was not planned." "Please let me explain." Luann sobbed. She reached for my hand and I stepped back like she was on fire. My eyes found her left hand, the engagement ring I had saved for 6 months to buy, the diamond that caught the light from our bedroom window. She was still wearing it. Somehow that detail hurt more than anything else. How long, I heard myself ask. My voice sounded far away, like someone else was speaking through my mouth. The silence stretched for an eternity. Derek looked at the floor. Luann looked at Derek. Finally, my brother mumbled the answer. 3 months. 3 months. While I worked late finishing the Henderson project. While I took extra shifts to pad our house fund. While Luann texted me heart emojis and told me she could not wait to be my wife. 3 months of lies. 3 months of betrayal. 3 months of my brother and my fiancé making a fool of me in my own home. I did not yell. I did not throw things. I did not hit anyone, though my fist ached with the desire. Instead, I walked to the closet and pulled out a duffel bag, started packing clothes, toiletries, my laptop, important documents. Each item I grabbed felt like I was collecting pieces of a shattered person, trying to figure out how they could ever fit back together. Luann followed me around the apartment begging. She said she was sorry. She said she loved me. She said it was a mistake that would never happen again. Derek hung back in the doorway of the bedroom, probably afraid I would change my mind about not hitting him. "The wedding is off," I said, when I had everything I needed. "I will send someone for the rest of my stuff." "Marcus, please." Luann grabbed my arm. I looked at her hand on my sleeve, then at her face, then at the ring she was still wearing. "Keep it," I said. "Maybe Derek can pawn it when he needs rent money next month." I drove to a hotel and sat in my car for 2 hours before I could make myself go inside and ask for a room. The news traveled through my family like wildfire. 2 days later, my father called. I answered, hoping for something I did not even know how to name. Comfort, maybe. Outrage on my behalf. The kind of righteous anger a father should feel when his son is betrayed. Derek told us everything my father said. His voice was serious but calm. Too calm. "We need to talk as a family. Not how are you holding up. Not I cannot believe he did this. Not we are so sorry, son. Just the command to present myself for a family discussion like I had been caught skipping school." My mother texted an hour later. "Please come home this weekend. We can work this out. Work this out." Like my brother sleeping with my fiancé was a scheduling conflict. Like forgiveness was a form to fill out and file. I drove to my parents' house that Saturday. The 2-hour trip felt endless. I kept rehearsing what I would say, how I would explain the devastation they seemed incapable of understanding. When I walked through the front door, I found Derek and Luann already there, sitting together on the couch. My mother's couch in my mother's living room in the house where I grew up. Luann was not wearing the engagement ring anymore, but she and Derek sat close enough that their shoulders touched. My parents stood nearby like hosts at a particularly awkward dinner party. I understood then that this was not a family meeting. It was an intervention. And I was the problem they had gathered to solve. My father took charge, immediately positioning himself like a judge in a courtroom. He spoke about family values, about forgiveness, about how we all needed to move forward together. My mother sat beside Derek, actually holding his hand at one point, while she talked about how everyone makes mistakes. Luann contributed her own tearful testimony. She said she still cared about me. She hoped we could all move past this. She actually used those words. Move past this. Like 3 months of betrayal was a speed bump on the road to happy family dinners. Derek played his role perfectly. Head down, voice trembling, the picture of remorse. "I never meant to hurt you, bro," he said. "It just happened. We could not help how we felt." I looked at my parents. "So this is my fault?" Nobody answered directly. My father studied his shoes. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The silence told me everything their words would not. "If Mom did this to you with Uncle Joe," I said to my father, Would you just move past it? His face went red. His jaw tightened. For a moment, I thought he might actually acknowledge the absurdity of what they were asking. Instead, he said that was different and changed the subject. Through all of this, one person had remained silent in the corner of the room. My grandmother Ruth. She was 82 years old, sharp as a tack, and the only member of my family who had ever treated me fairly. When she finally spoke, her voice cut through the room like a blade. "This is disgraceful," she said. "You are all disgraceful." She turned her gaze to Derek, and he actually flinched. "You betrayed your own brother, slept with his fiancée in his own bed. And now everyone wants him to just forgive and forget." My father tried to interrupt her. "Mom, this is not helping." Grandma Ruth raised her hand and he went silent like he was 10 years old again. "Raymond, I raised you better than this. Apparently I failed." She walked across the room to where I stood alone. Her hand found my arm squeezing gently. "You do not owe them anything," she said quietly. "Not forgiveness, not your presence, not a single thing." I hugged her then, the first human contact that had felt safe since I walked into that bedroom. "Thank you," I whispered. I straightened up and looked at my family. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The people who were asking me to accept betrayal as the price of belonging. "I am done," I said. "Do not contact me." I walked out the door and did not look back. In my car driving away from that house, I cried for the first time since it happened. Not for Luann, not for Derek, for the family I thought I had, for the brother I thought I knew, for the life I thought was mine. The months that followed were the hardest of my life. I lost the deposit on the house. I moved into a studio apartment across town, tiny and impersonal, but blessedly free of memories. I worked longer hours than ever, not because I needed the money, but because idle time meant thinking, and thinking meant drowning. I blocked Derek's number, blocked Luann's, blocked my parents. The only family contact I kept was Grandma Ruth, who called every Sunday evening without fail. She never pressured me to reconcile, never suggested I was being too harsh. She just asked about my week and told me stories about her garden. Through her, I learned what was happening back home. Derek and Luann had made their relationship official. They were living in the apartment Luann and I had shared. My parents hosted them for dinners, included them in holidays, treated them like the happy couple they supposedly were. They had replaced me so seamlessly, it was like I had never existed. Friends I had shared with Luann stopped calling. I heard through the grapevine that I was being painted as the unreasonable one. Too rigid, too unforgiving. Unable to accept that people make mistakes. The narrative had been written without my input, and it cast me as the villain. I started to wonder if they were right. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should be bigger than my pain. Maybe family really did mean accepting the unacceptable. Those thoughts kept me up at night. They followed me to work, sat beside me. At meals, whispered in my ear when I tried to sleep. Was I the problem? Had I always been the problem? December arrived cold and gray. I had survived 8 months of solitude, 8 months of rebuilding, something that resembled a life. Then the Christmas card came. My mother had sent it through the postal service since all her other avenues to reach me were blocked. The front showed a generic winter scene, snowflakes and pine trees. Inside, her handwriting filled the card. "Christmas is about family and forgiveness. Please come home. We miss you." A longer letter was tucked inside. She wrote about healing, about moving forward, about how Derek and Luann were doing so well now, and everyone just wanted to be together for the holidays. Notably, absent from the 3 pages of emotional appeals was any actual apology. Grandma Ruth called that evening earlier than her usual Sunday time. I could tell from her voice that something was wrong. "They are planning something," she said. "Your father wants you there to make peace officially. What does that mean?" She paused. "Derek is going to propose to Luann at Christmas dinner. They want you there to give your blessing, to show the family that everything is fine now." I sat down heavily on my couch. They want me to watch my brother propose to my ex-fiancée and smile about it. That is exactly what they want. The audacity stole my breath. It was not enough that they had taken her from me. Not enough that they had chosen his side. Now they wanted me to perform my acceptance like a trained seal to validate their choices in front of the entire extended family. My first instinct was to refuse, to stay in my apartment with a frozen pizza and bad television, to let them have their perfect Christmas without me. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I became. They had controlled this story from the beginning. Derek and Luann were the sympathetic lovers who could not help their feelings. I was the bitter, unforgiving brother who could not let go. I was tired of being a character in their narrative. I called Grandma Ruth back. "I will be there," I said, "but I am not giving them what they want." Christmas Eve arrived. I put on a nice suit, loaded a bottle of wine into my car, and drove the 2 hours to my parents' house. Snow started falling halfway there, coating the world in white, making everything look clean and new. The irony was not lost on me. The house looked like a postcard when I pulled into the driveway. Lights strung along the roofline. A wreath on the door. Through the windows, I could see people moving around the warm glow of the fireplace, the top of a decorated Christmas tree. I stood on the porch for a long moment watching. Derek and Luann were visible in the living room, sitting close together on the couch I had avoided during my last visit. She was wearing a new ring, already something modest on her right hand, a placeholder for what was coming. Aunts, uncles, cousins milled around with drinks in their hands. My parents moved through the crowd like hosts at a party, smiling, gesturing completely at ease. I walked in. The room went quiet when they saw me. My father recovered first, crossing the room with his arms open and a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Marcus," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "So glad you could make it." My mother hugged me next, whispering in my ear, "I am so glad you came. Please, for the family." I nodded and said nothing. Let them think what they wanted. Let them believe their plan was working. Dinner was an exercise in endurance. I sat at the far end of the table, answering questions about work with monosyllables, deflecting comments about how good it was to see me with non-committal sounds. Derek avoided my eyes. Luann did not. She kept glancing at me with an expression I could not quite read. Triumph, maybe. Or nervousness about what was coming. After the meal, everyone gathered in the living room for what my father called a special announcement. He stood by the fireplace, wineglass in hand, beaming like a man about to give away a prize. He talked about family, about love, about forgiveness and new beginnings. He talked about how proud he was of Derek for growing up so much this past year. He talked about Luann like she was already his daughter-in-law. Then he gestured for Derek to stand. My brother reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Luann gasped, her hands flying to her mouth in rehearsed surprise. Derek knelt in front of her right there in my parents' living room, surrounded by our entire extended family. "Luann," he said, "will you marry me?" She said yes. Of course she said yes. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Champagne appeared from somewhere. People hugged and congratulated the happy couple. My father caught my eye across the room. He raised his glass slightly, a small smile on his face. The message was clear. "This is how it is now. Accept it." My mother appeared at my side, taking my arm. "See," she said, "they are happy. Can you be happy for them?" I looked at her, at my father, at Derek and Luann, embracing in the center of the room, at the relatives who were watching me, waiting to see if I would play my part. I stood up. "Can I say something?" I asked, loud enough to cut through the celebration. The room quieted. Derek's smile faltered. My father nodded, probably expecting a gracious concession speech. "I want to thank everyone for this evening," I said. My voice was calm and clear. "It has been very educational." Nervous laughter from a few relatives who thought I was joking. For months I wondered if I was wrong, if I was too harsh, if I should forgive and forget like everyone kept telling me. I looked around the room, meeting eyes wherever I could find them. But tonight, watching my family celebrate the two people who betrayed me, asking me to bless their union, I finally have my answer. The room was completely silent now. I am not the problem. I was never the problem. I turned to my father. "You taught me that family comes first, But apparently that only applies when it is convenient for Derek. I turned to my mother. You said everyone makes mistakes, but you never once asked me how I was doing. Not once. I looked at Derek. You are not sorry. You are just glad you got away with it. And finally, Luann. I hope he treats you the way you treated me. I reached down and unclasped the watch on my wrist. It was a graduation gift from my father, expensive and meaningful, something I had treasured for years. I set it on the coffee table. This was given to me by a father who believed in family, I said. That man does not exist anymore. My father's face was purple with rage. You are ruining Christmas, he sputtered, after everything we have done for you. I almost laughed. Everything you have done for me, you mean blaming me for Derek's affair. Telling me I worked too much. Like that justified betrayal. Inviting me here to watch him propose to the woman who was supposed to be my wife. I straightened my jacket. I am done waiting for an apology that will never come. I am done being the one who sacrifices. I am done being part of a family that only values me when I am useful. I looked at Grandma Ruth, who had tears in her eyes but was nodding slowly. From this moment, I am choosing myself. She stood up from her chair, walked across the room, and took my arm. I am proud of you, she said. Let us go. We walked out together, leaving chaos behind us. I heard my mother crying, my father shouting, Derek saying something defensive. I did not look back, not once. Grandma Ruth and I drove to her house in silence. She lived in a small cottage about 30 minutes away, cozy and warm and filled with decades of memories that had nothing to do with my parents or Derek. I helped her inside, made tea, and sat with her at her kitchen table until well past midnight. You lost a family tonight, she said finally, but you found yourself. I did not realize I was crying until she handed me a tissue. She held my hand while I let out 8 months of grief, anger, confusion, and pain. For the first time since April, I felt like someone truly understood. The weeks after Christmas were strange. I had expected to feel worse, but instead I felt lighter. Like I had been carrying a weight I did not know I could put down. I requested a transfer to my company's office in another city. They approved it within 2 weeks. I packed up my studio apartment, said goodbye to the few acquaintances I had made, and started over somewhere completely new. My new city was smaller, quieter, with mountains visible from downtown and hiking trails 15 minutes from my apartment. I found a therapist who specialized in family trauma and started unpacking years of dysfunction I had never examined before. It was hard work, painful work, but necessary. I joined a rock climbing gym to meet people, made friends with a guy named Trevor who worked in marketing and had an encyclopedic knowledge of bad action movies. Started having dinner once a week with a group of coworkers who became genuine friends. One of them was Harper. She worked in the design department, had a laugh that could fill a room, and knew nothing about my past when we first met. We started as colleagues, became friends over lunch breaks and coffee runs, and eventually something more began to grow. I did not rush it. Neither did she. We had both been hurt before, and we were both careful with each other's hearts. Grandma Ruth called every Sunday without fail. She updated me on the family drama I no longer participated in. Derek and Luann's relationship was already showing cracks. They argued constantly. Luann had discovered that Derek had been lying about money, about job prospects, about a dozen small things that added up to a much bigger picture. My parents were now subsidizing their lifestyle, paying bills. Derek could not cover cleaning up messes he continued to make. I waited to feel satisfied by this news, vindicated. But honestly, I felt nothing. They were characters in a story that was no longer mine. Their happiness or unhappiness had no bearing on my life. What I learned more than anything was that forgiveness is not what I thought it was. I used to think forgiveness was something I owed to other people, a debt I had to pay to keep the peace. But forgiveness is not about them. It is about me. I forgave Derek and Luann not for their sake, but so I could stop carrying that poison inside me. So I could sleep at night without dreaming of revenge. So I could build a future without constantly looking back at the past. But forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. It does not mean pretending nothing happened. It does not mean opening your door to people who hurt you just because they share your blood. Some people show you who they are. Believe them the first time. A year after that Christmas, I was settled in my new life. Good job, good friends, good health. Harper and I had been dating for 3 months, taking it slow, learning each other. When Grandma Ruth came to visit, she met Harper over dinner at my apartment. Afterward, when Harper went to the kitchen to get dessert, my grandmother leaned over and whispered to me. "This one has a good heart," she said. "Do not let her go." I smiled. I was not planning on it. If you are going through something similar, if someone you trusted betrayed you and the people who should have your back are asking you to just get over it, I want you to tell you something. You are not crazy. You are not too harsh. You are not asking for too much by expecting loyalty from the people who claim to love you. Sometimes the family you are born into is not the family you are meant to keep. Sometimes the people who share your blood are not the people who deserve your heart. And that is okay. It is painful and confusing and unfair, but it is okay. Because you deserve people who choose you, people who show up for you, people who would never ask you to smile while they twist the knife. Choose yourself. The right people will stay. I am sitting on my balcony as I finish telling you this story. The sun is setting over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Harper just brought out 2 cups of coffee and sat down beside me. She does not know all the details yet, but she knows enough. And she is still here. Life is not perfect. It never was, and it never will be. But it is mine now. Built on my terms, filled with people who value me, moving toward a future I actually want. And that is enough. That is more than enough. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from family to protect yourself? How did you find the strength to choose your own peace over keeping everyone else comfortable? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you have not already, hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I hope wherever you are, whatever you are going through, you find the courage to choose yourself too. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.